Before you learn anything about how to edit video, I just want to explain a couple things about how video editing software works. This is how PowerDirector works, but really any video editing software. So we're used to working with a piece of software, say Microsoft Word, and a related file. So if I'm creating a calendar for class, it just might be calendar.doc, right? DOC stands for document. We're used to that. These files are pretty small, maybe an average one 20 kilobytes. That's definitely a ballpark, but that's something we're used to, a piece of software and a document. And I just want to show you with the next slide kind of how maybe more complicated that is with a piece of video editing software, because we're using much larger files and we're using several files and they're kind of talking with one another. So in this example, we have our piece of software, our PowerDirector, and the primary file we might be working with is the name of our project file, and that root, rather than the DOC for a Word document, is PDS, which in this case just stands for PowerDirector script. And that would be a normal relationship that we're used to in, say, Microsoft Word. But here there's all these secondary files. So here's just a theoretical project, and if I'm working on this theoretical project and I want two different songs in this project, I want this one photo at some point, and I'm going to be drawing some information and some clips from 1, 2, 3 different videos. This starts to just demonstrate how we're using a primary piece of software, we're working on a project, but that project is simultaneously talking to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other files, and these are pretty substantially large files. For instance, if you look at this one video file, if we assume it's 1 gigabyte, that's 50,000 times larger than one 20 kilobyte file that we might see occasionally working with Microsoft Word. So it's just good to keep in mind that there's a lot of stuff going on. It's taxing on a computer, and we want to make sure our files are organized. So what's the takeaway from this? We have many files that need to be organized for a project. So what I've suggested to students in the past is just to create a folder for that project. So if it's a documentary project for AP English, they just create a folder, and it's going to have all the necessary files in it. It's going to have this PDS project file, that's the file they're creating and manipulating in PowerDirector, but it's also going to have all the related media files. Any photos that they're planning to use or might use, any audio recordings, whether that's voice recordings or songs, and any video recordings. It's all going to go in one place just to help them stay organized. Remember, there's all these files that we're trying to keep organized, and I guess the more we can set that up for kids, the better off they will be, hopefully, to succeed in working on their project. Another thing to think about is that as you work with PowerDirector, it's constantly communicating with those secondary but very important files, the photos, the music, the video files, and it can only do that by knowing what the name of the file is and where it's located. So once you start your project, your files should really already be organized, and as you work on that project, you don't want to move that organization. You don't want to change what files are called. You don't want to rename them. You don't want to reorganize them, because that's going to alter the way PowerDirector is communicating with those files. It's just going to tell PowerDirector that it doesn't know kind of where those files are. And one other thing to consider as you work on PowerDirector, if you choose to do that with students, is that because the files are so large, I've hesitated to really have students save on the network. I've had students save on a thumb drive that is essentially like a form of local storage that they would have control over. I would just be concerned with a class of, say, 20 students all working simultaneously in the B Lab on a video editing project, and all of those projects drawing, those substantial size files across the network. The network might sustain it is just really kind of unsure at this point. And I guess the more people work on this, the more we'll figure it out. But anyway, there's just a couple quick things there. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense about working with video editing software and the types of files and the relative size of files to really what we're used to working with.